Good evening. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person tonight to discuss something that's had a major effect on my life, my career, my family, and that is melanoma. But this is the time in the year when I travel around to baseball parks all over the country. This is our 17th season of raising money for cancer research at baseball parks, culminating on Father's Day. I hope I have a chance to see many of you during these travels. Tonight is focused on bioscience, cancer, and melanoma. When I first chose to go to school at Berkeley, University of California at that time, my goal was to try to prepare to lead the space program in the United States. But when I returned home in 1965 during the summer, the Watts riots changed my career forever. The understanding of a link between access to capital and the American dream and social justice all came together that night, August 11, 1965. I went back to Berkeley, switched my major to business, studied credit, and eventually decided to go on to Wharton to further my work in corporate finance. And in an analogy to medical research, the 1969-1970 period were really my own clinical trials in testing these theories out during enormously volatile times in financial markets that many of you might remember, particularly for conglomerates, the aerospace industry, airlines, etc. But continuing with that medical analogy, an epidemic occurred beginning in 1974 in America, a period of time which I still believe is the most important history lesson for anyone in finance. And understanding leveraged finance that we all work in today, myself as an investor, many of you with new groundbreaking work and investments, this was a period of time that it was predicted that more than 3,000 of the largest companies in the world might fail during this period of 1974 to 1976. Many of the great companies and organizations and cities and states, New York City, Con Ed, among them, found their debt trading for pennies on the dollar. And what we had worked on at both Berkeley and Wharton in building our business, this epidemic of credit, we were able to apply to help save companies, rebuild companies, and at the end of the day, less than a handful of companies failed during that period of time. It was also a period of time for me of family expansion, and my wife Lori and I had two beautiful children, and it should have been a time of just great success. But during the same period of time, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with breast cancer and my father with melanoma. Luckily, there was a solution for my mother-in-law at the time, and she survived breast cancer, unfortunately to pass away to multiple myeloma about 10 years later. With my father, I traveled the country for a number of years, visiting almost every major cancer center. And it was in the fall of 1976, after 2 years of search, that I finally concluded to myself that science could not move fast enough to save my father's life. Lori and I talked about it, and we decided we needed to move back to California. And I needed to convince people in my department to move back with me so that our two young boys would get to know my father before he passed away. Moving back to California was the right decision. It doesn't take cancer for each of us to know that the most important thing is family, good health, and long life. With 1 in 2 men going to be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime and 1 in 3 women, my family is not unique. And in fact, once you understand the importance of science, medical research, it's easy to understand why 50% of all economic growth has come from advances in the bioscience, the extension of life and the quality of life. But 30 years after my father had been diagnosed with melanoma, very little had happened. And it wasn't until Leon and Deborah Black, 6 years ago, made the decision to begin funding and the creation of the Melanoma Research Alliance that the world and the opportunities for melanoma patients had changed dramatically. It has become the largest private funder of melanoma research in the world, and in conjunction with the Faster Cures Foundation, has changed research in melanoma and has proved as a leader of what could be done. When I was at Berkeley, a young professor reminded me that when Einstein was asked what was the most powerful force in the world, he responded, compound interest. Now, whether that's true or folklore, I don't know. But you don't have to be in leveraged finance to understand that compounding is the most important thing. What rate is the economy growing? Is it creating jobs? Is it creating opportunity? What rate is the birth rate? What are the demands on society? Even your own portfolio. All those trillions of dollars of commitments. Can we meet our actual assumption? What are our promises to future generation? But in medicine, compounding is everything. In cancer, how fast is your cancer growing? Many cancers don't grow that fast, but advanced melanoma does. One melanoma sale in January, compounding every month, doubling every month, could be 1,000 by October. And so melanoma is a fertile field to work in for all researchers. But it was taking the funding supplied by Deborah and Leon that changed the world in melanoma. I want to thank you for joining the Melanoma Research Alliance tonight. And I want to thank you if you choose to support one of the most important organizations in our efforts to eliminate cancer as a cause of death. I also want to thank Deborah and Leon for the opportunity to work with you and Jeff as a leader in putting this event together. And I look forward to seeing you all in person in the near future. Thank you.